You make social plans, but when they abruptly fall through, you experience a distinct sensation. A heavy weight physically lifts right off your chest, but almost instantly, creeping guilt sets in. You wonder what is wrong with you, and assume this relief is a symptom of some deep psychological flaw. That guilt comes from the social script. This is the cultural assumption we all live under that treats constant social presence as the absolute metric of wellness, while asserting that any desire to be absent must hide underlying trauma or anxiety. Picture someone named Maya. She works in marketing, she has friends, and she's not depressed or antisocial. Yet in the days leading up to a group event, she feels a slow, agonizing dread building in her stomach. Society has conditioned people like Maya to view their natural desire for quiet as a missing piece of their personality. They end up forcing themselves to perform extraversion just to feel normal. Human beings are biologically watered for connection. That is an undeniable scientific baseline. Decades of research at the University of Chicago proved that forced loneliness activates the exact same neural threat responses as physical pain. We need people. But here is the cultural logical fallacy. Society observed the very real danger of forced isolation and incorrectly concluded that constant people-pleasing is the only healthy state of being. If we're purely social creatures, why does Maya return from fulfilling her social obligations with an exhaustion that a full night of sleep cannot fix? Failing to distinguish between the biological need for connection and the societal demand for constant connection is the root cause of this widespread modern exhaustion. In the 1990s, psychologist Elaine Aron published research on what she termed highly sensitive people. She found that roughly 15 to 20% of the population possesses a distinctly specialized nervous system. The core trait of this group is not that they are fragile or that they process emotional information more intensely. They simply process sensory data more deeply. This side-by-side node network visualization shows us exactly what that looks like during a social interaction. On the left, a standard nervous system processes 3 or 4 primary data points from a conversation. On the right, the deep processing system receives that exact same input, but each node branches into dozens of secondary and tertiary background processes. Running that massive volume of background processes rapidly depletes the brain's energy reserves compared to the standard system. For these specific individuals, a standard social event, like a group trip, functions as a high-cost biological event. This post-social exhaustion is a biological processing debt that requires repayment. Repaying that debt requires defragmentation. In computer science, defragmentation is the process of reorganizing data so a machine runs efficiently. For humans, it is the quiet downtime required to cool down an overworked nervous system. Psychologist Reed Larson spent years studying adolescence, and his work drew a hard line between forced, punitive isolation and voluntary, chosen solitude. Chosen solitude provides measurable biological and psychological benefits. When people return to social settings after voluntary time alone, they show improved moods and much higher rates of self-reflection. Look at this visual spectrum chart to see where healthy solitude ends and danger begins. On the left, restoration follows an active upward curve, but cross the tipping point in the middle and you enter retreating on the right, where the curve flattens out into numbness and disconnection. The ultimate diagnostic tool to differentiate between recharging and retreating is the after effect. You have to observe whether you emerge from that time alone feeling restored or vaguely worse. Healthy solitude serves as active biological maintenance. Unhealthy isolation acts as passive avoidance. Suppressing your biological preference for solitude by forcing constant social performance causes compounding damage over time. Years of this performance create a chronic, low-level exhaustion that patients usually misdiagnose as work stress or modern busyness. They spend their lives feeling like they are living slightly outside of themselves. Maya reached a turning point at age 31 during an unplanned weekend. When her plans fell through, she chose to leave the space empty, finally giving herself permission to sit with her own thoughts. This stillness provided the first real opportunity in years to process emotions and core values that had been drowned out by the noise of her daily schedule. Consistent access to this quiet space fosters cognitive independence, the ability to form and trust internal thoughts without the immediate influence of a group. By interrogating your own positions in the quiet first, you prevent the external room from dictating your opinions and beliefs. Treating solitude as vital maintenance allows for a grounded sense of self, creating the capacity for true presence and genuine intimacy when we do choose to connect.